Welcome to the walkthrough for the frequently made mistakes that I encountered when I reviewed your Assignment 1 solutions for CS3251. First and foremost, please make sure you document your code thoroughly. The method definitions should have comments at the top describing what the methods do. You should also make sure that you provide comments for the method bodies as well, if the method definition comments don't describe what's going on thoroughly. Next, please make sure you implement both a constructor and a destructor. Otherwise, your code won't compile properly and won't pass the test. Let's take a look at some of the problems with the methods I saw. In this particular case, this get implementation isn't really wrong per se. It could just be simplified by returning marray instead of returning the address of the first location in marray. Here's a problem with the destructor where there's no need to use a while loop here. You can simply delete the array. You don't have to put a while loop. That doesn't do anything. Let's go ahead now and take a look at an implementation of is non-null. First and foremost, you have to use the right syntax to define a method in C++. You have to say the name of the class, in this case, simple array : is non-null. Otherwise, the compiler doesn't realize this is part of the simple array class. Secondly, please just say return array not equal to null pointer. There's no need to use an if statement with two return values. Just use the return of the conditional expression. Here's another issue that's not really a problem. It's just a simpler way to write the code. It's probably a better way to write get reference to return marray sub I rather than taking marray, adding I to it, and then dereferencing the result with the star operator. Here's another method that needs to have the proper syntax. You have to make sure you use simple array : as the prefix, otherwise it won't compile properly. And secondly, this method implementation is simply incorrect since it's not taking into account the ith parameter that's passed into the array, the getReference method in this simple array class. Once again, the release method needs to have the right syntax. You'll see this for a lot of the methods below. This person had many mistakes with that. Your code simply won't compile properly. Also, you're not correctly returning the original, in other words, the non-null value of marray. You're setting marray to the null pointer, and then you're returning that null pointer, and that's not the proper way to do release. Let's take a look at a problem with the reset method. This again has to have the right syntax. And also, please make sure not to have a default value in the method definition. To the extent that there's a default value at all, which I don't think there's a need for one here, please make sure that that goes into the method declaration in the header file. Also, this implementation is simply wrong. It's not resetting things properly. You need to delete all the values that marray points to first, and then you should go ahead and set marray equal to RHS. And then finally, let's take a look at a problem with the swap method. Once again, this has to have the right syntax with the simple array : prefix. But then more than that, the implementation is simply too complicated. Get in the habit of just using things like the standard swap algorithm, which is defined in C++ STL as a helper method to implement swap methods like this. So that's the end of the frequently made mistakes that I saw when I reviewed the code or other things that I could see could be improved. Some people did well. If you did well, if you had no problems, I wrote good job as a comment at the top of your file. So you're fine. You don't have to do any extra work except perhaps improve the commenting. However, make sure that if you have any of the problems I showed here, that you fix them for the final solution that you're going to submit here in just a few days. Please take a look at the website if you have any questions, and make sure that you post questions to Piazza and/or come to office hours if I can be of any assistance.